This one is actually going to end a little bit sooner than some of the other ones, but that's okay because I'll be back at it tomorrow. I'm doing this every day for the month, and at some schedule to be determined in the months coming. But today I'm continuing with some of my diagram library work for the CAD renders that go into the documents that I write. So I'm going to get right into that. So I have it open here. I have, just like yesterday, it's the 16th today, so I'm going to add a little note here in my stream notes. In particular, work on view centering. And I have, so my miscellaneous stream notes here. I have a spot here where I could write notes about general things that I intend to turn into blog posts. In this spot here, I've got the code base I'm working on here, and then I have the file that gets rendered here in this pane here, and then I have a REPL here. So there's a lot of stuff on screen, but I'm using all of them to varying degrees. So here, for example, this here, standing point, if I add ASDF there, save it, if you let it rebuild, or if you wait for it to rebuild, and then you'll see ASDF show up here, because this is the render of the document itself. Okay, that's what I've got going on. And I'm going to go ahead and call that ready to keep working. So what I was doing last time was working on this thing here. Okay, this is a work in progress Cad View. Hey Bismonger, how's it going? Hope you're doing okay. I'm working on adding a little container that'll make these views automatically, which has a front, right, top, and isometric view right there. So that's the focus of the stream for the day, I think. A little bit easier, or a little more focused, because it's going to be a bit of a shorter stream on my end. Bismonger, you're doing well. I'm glad to hear that. That's good. That is good. Okay, so to get right into what I was working on yesterday, let's see here. I've got the code right here. It looks all confusing because it's not cleaned up, which is fine for right now. I have get move coordinates. Yeah. So if I so I've got this as an example. I can actually turn the line off, I think. See if that works. Too much math? You mean you're doing too much math right now, or I'm doing too much math? Right, so we've got that going fine. All right, let me think for a brief moment about how I want to handle this quadrant figure scenario. I have an idea, which I'll define a function here Cad View. And the Cad View is going to take the same arguments that quadrant figure does. No, me? I'm doing too much math? What do you mean, man? Too much math, not enough. What? What are you expecting? Width, height, scale, row. Okay, and then quadrant figure. "3D widgets." I mean, 3D takes a lot of math sometimes. Also, this is all prototype work, so doing it the smart way, quote unquote, is obviously a goal, but not the immediate goal. So I think I'm doing okay for now. Okay, so if I take I'm just making a kind of wrapper here to make a CAD view that puts these in a quadrant and centers them all properly for me. All nicely anyway. So in order to do that, basically, I just want to do this set of work on each quadrant. And the order ISO let me do this little spot here. Okay, let's get rid of this line because I don't need it at all. Okay. Is there like a more generic way to do 3D stuff that you know about? I'm just curious. Or you mean in general that, like, oh man, that's a lot of math to deal with? So if I make a little wrapper here. In general, yeah. When I was in university, I was studying mechanical engineering, which itself has a lot of math, but that's usually fine. But I would always find that, like, the examples we would go over in lectures and stuff, it's like you would want to simplify to a 2D version of some problem, a physics problem or something like that, right? And you can understand it because it's okay. You got the x and the y, and you do whatever, right? You do a set of linear equations, and then you solve it, or whatever the case is. You're working with x and y, and time. So 3 total variables basically. And then you go and do the homework, and you have to generalize the same idea into the 3rd dimension, which is conceptually the same. But I always found it like hard to think through the additional work you had to do to just add that 3rd dimension. But hey, that's the way it goes. I will also say that the way I'm writing the code out is not necessarily the right way to do it, quote-unquote right way in terms of a highly efficient math library. I'm just writing the functions that I need as I need them and going from there. I do know that there's like proper math libraries and stuff like that, but I don't want to bring too many dependencies in up front if I don't have to. Okay, so if I center the view, right, what's happening here is I'm getting an object and a viewport sort of thing like that, and wrapping it in basically move coordinates of width, height, and 1 over the scale, because you have to reverse the, or maybe I'm doing something wrong with scale, but that's something for another day. And then the object itself is just like that. So there's center view, and then quadrant figure takes 4 different items. If I do center view of I haven't actually put the object in yet, of course, so I move it by those coordinates, and I'm moving it. Actually, let me let's do this. Let chords be this thing, like that, and move by coordinates the object like that. Yeah, that works. That's what I wanted, I think. Yeah. That makes a bit of sense. And then yeah, then let me see if I'm thinking about this right. I think it should be fine. The isometric of the object is there. And then in this case, I had the isometric was first, then top, then front, then right. Top, front, right. Now let's see if that actually makes any sense. Does it do what I want it to? That's always the question of the day. Okay. Ooh, did I mess something up? I might have. Well, let's do something different then. Let's just start that part over. Okay, so I've got this thing there. I'm gonna run Cad View. I'm gonna give it excuse me, that shape of window, and I want to do it on this object here, and I want to see if that'll render out. Working on anything cool today, Biz, or anyone else who's watching who wants to join in? Just curious, you know? Hope everything's going okay. What did I do? Oh, this. Gotta delete that because it's not valid there. Oh yeah, my workflow still needs improving. What's happening here, I can edit the code here, save it, and then I always forget that I need to make a change in the document itself to see the changes reflected. So this, I still called this incorrectly, and that's because of what reason? What? Oh. Of course, I need to do this. Can't even call my own functions properly. That's my bad. Scale. Yeah. Oh, I could do, I wonder if this is actually more efficient. I'm not sure. Let center view function be partial center view not sure if that's smart or not smart. I'll leave it alone for now. I think it doesn't matter that much at the moment. Save that. So now center view has the proper shape to it being called. And I have to do the same thing here. Save that, and I want to see if an error shows up in the watcher here. And it's still wrong, and that's because I have incorrectly called quadrant figure, which makes sense because I wasn't paying attention to this, which normally, so you call it if I go up here to the draw utilities thing, it's a container, the quadrant figure here. I need to call it with the size and then a description and then the four things. So I've got the size here, and then Cad View is the description for it, for the figure, and that should now be the right number of arguments to it. And then I should be able to save this and see a change if it doesn't give me an error here, which we will find out in just a moment. There we go, created it, it's working. Now is it actually working though? That's the next question. Oops. Let me see here, inspect. Okay, so the SVG exists, and it does contain, it does actually contain well, it's doing something wrong. So this is not being compiled properly, and the reason for that I'm not sure of yet, but I can work on that. So let me have a look here. Where am I at? let's see. Oh, this is also incorrect. Let me do, this has to be quadrant width has to be half of the width divided by 2, first of all. Quadrant height has to be the height divided by 2, nice and simple. And then these here are those. But okay, that close off the let there. Row is an object. Oh, of course. I haven't actually called. The view has to have the draw function calling this, which I haven't done. I'll do draw faces for now on there. Right, so I'm just passing in the object, but it's actually the draw faces or draw edges function that it properly renders out the actual graphics of it. So I have to fix that, obviously, because I need the rendered view for it to show up as something that makes sense. Okay, save that. Let's just do a trivial change to this document, save it, and then it should rebuild and give me a Cad view. Hopefully everything is working the way I want it to, but I'll have to see. And it's not. Unable to resolve draw faces in this context? Really? Why is that? Of course. Okay, that's because I have the draw faces function declared below, like after where this is here. So if I do this, it'll work. Declare draw faces. I believe that should fix that problem, because draw faces in the actual source file, the symbol is used before the value of that symbol is defined in the code. So when it tries to run it, the symbol isn't pointing to anything. But if I declare draw faces, then as it's reading through the file, it knows that that'll be defined later on in the file. So you can, well, I figured that would solve it, but maybe it hasn't. Oh, unless I didn't actually run it again. Let's see. Let us see. Let's see. Hey, an exception. That's fun. Let me see if draw edges is going to work. Because I know that function, at least I didn't have it. It wasn't broken yesterday. Again, I have to save this. Wow. I'm just doing it all wrong at the moment. Okay. forget now if I pass it in as a, like if I give it a list of objects to render, does that suddenly work? Let me have a look. Find out if that's doing what I need. A little less chatty today, I'm realizing as I go. Apologies for that. I just got other stuff on my mind, you know? Not every day is a super chatty day. I think that's probably okay, but I feel a little lost for words. Just trying to get my bearings on my own code again. Something's always going a little bit wrong. And that's all to be expected during prototyping and figuring it out, but yeah, just not so chatty today. That's it's just the way I'm feeling, you know? If I have a recursive, recursive. Let me see here for a moment. Right, draw edges recursive and draw faces. Let me do this. Zip it beneath there and clean this up. I don't want to use the recursive one. Don't want to wrap this in a list. I just want to draw the one thing directly. And I'm going to try draw faces because I was using that yesterday and it was working. So let me clean that up a little bit here. And draw aces, faces. There we go. Okay. Let me see. What am I doing wrong here? Key must be integer. Okay. I've got a test object here. This triangle in the REPL. It is an extruded triangle, so I can use that. That's fine. So I should be able to call draw faces on that shape. And it should work, but it doesn't. And the reason for that, I'm not sure of yet. Just draw faces. Well, that's weird. I don't know what I did because I thought I had this working yesterday, which is usually a bad sign. So all right, let me have a look at the draw faces function here, which I thought would still be working. Draw faces. If I call it draw faces xtry orient iso, does this work? Okay, it works there. So why did it break? Well, okay, let me adjust this for a minute and call it the way I had it set up yesterday. Draw faces row, center view. Let me just clear out all these parens and match them myself in a moment. Oh wait, I don't remember the order. ISO top front right. Front right view. There we go. Close it off. All right. That one's ISO orient top. So I am wondering if I kind of set this up in a backwards way that isn't the smartest, because each of these orient things are not just like they're actual functions, right? So I'm passing functions in as arguments, which is cool, but I also can run them on an object directly. So I'm wondering if that breaks the general assumption of how to pass excuse me, draw faces into that. So I have to maybe rework the draw faces setup here. ISO top front right. Okay, now we can close that. Center view, center that view, quadrant view, let CAD. Oh boy. Oof, that's a little unruly. Let me instead do it this way. Kind of ugly, but that'll be fine. Save that. Let me see if that will actually run, since I'm calling the function theoretically correctly. Zero arguments passed to Clojure.core max. Now, why is that? Why is that? Get move coordinates. Get 2D points. So in here, get 2D points of an object gets me the bounding box center of the projected view of that, which is what I expect. But if I And if I orient ISO this thing, it also gets me that, so that's working okay. What I'm running into a problem with is here, center view. Move. Come on, brain. Where did I go wrong now? Okay, yep. So center view, I'm calling into it as an argument, I'm calling the draw faces thing, which renders the object into hiccup data, but center view calls get move coordinates and is expecting not the hiccup version of a thing, not this, but something that looks like this. A list of nodes, edges, and faces. So I'm incorrectly rendering out a thing before I should be, like I'm passing the wrong thing into the center view function. So it tries to run bounding box on a thing that doesn't have a bounding box anymore. So it's the wrong shape of data going into here. So I have to change that, because obviously it's not going to work. Which means I need to let's see here. Center view, if instead I do it this way, right? So I'm calling draw faces outside of here. But if I do it this way, that center view will still work. Should still work, and then I have to change this function because this is not complete yet. Object there. Right, so this won't properly render the renderable object yet. So I need to move coordinates. The actual object has to be wrapped in a draw faces call here, but I need it to because of the way I kind of weirdly made draw faces need a transform, like a view transform in there. I'm gonna kind of cheat it for a moment and do move coordinates, move to the coordinates, get move coordinates of the object that you passed in, then move to those coordinates the transformed view, which will be draw faces of the object using the identity transform, which means just do nothing. So let me see if that makes sense, if that'll work. Let me see. So we'll find out if it spits out an error here, if I've thought about this correctly, or if, there we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're on, now we're on to something, which is really exciting. So what's happened here is I have this thing called a Cad View, which basically is a helper function that has some hard-coded spots for drawing all the orientations of each of these things, which is really neat. And what I'm thinking is, okay, so the reason I have to do this identity thing is because I have draw faces set up where if you pass it just an object, the assumption I had yesterday was that you pass it that object and then you render it as the isometric orientation of that object as its default, but I'm not sure that that makes sense, because so now if I happen to pass it in an object that is already rotated to the view I want it, then I don't want it to apply a further transform, so I have to cheat it by passing identity through here, and that seems clunky. So draw faces and draw edges, expect an orientation function. This might not be smart because sometimes you already have the proper orientation by default. It applies orient iso, which would ruin the projection. Hey, and Permyakov, how's it going? So I'll just leave that be for now. That'll be fine, I think. It's going well. I'm glad to hear that. That's good. Okay, so let me see if this function responds to changes to the calls here. See if it does what I want. It's looking a little better. Okay, cool. Now let's bring that back down to 10, and let's adjust this window to be smaller. Let's see if that works. How's the Clojure adventure going? Oh, it's going. I'll tell you that much. I am constantly adjusting workflow and assumptions and stuff like that, but I'm having a great time with it. I've got a little one-liner. Let me see. Well, I'm zipping back and forth here. I have a slightly different workflow now, just still experimenting. But I have in my terminal here, I'm running a little one-liner that watches specific files automatically, so that I'm not running the watcher in the REPL here, which has actually made things just a little smoother. It means I can close Emacs, open it up again without disrupting the reloading of the page, that kind of thing. So the workflow side's going okay. The code side is going just fine. Of course, as I add functionality, it gets messier, right? So I have to off-stream go and clean up my file structure, delete notes that I've left all over the place and stuff like that. And to tell you the truth, I've been busy in my life, and not all of that is done to the level that I want it to be done. But all of that aside, things are going okay, and I'm having a good go at it. So this function I just kind of worked on a little bit yesterday and today. It's a little helper that nicely makes a CAD view of whatever shape I pass into it. And by CAD view, I mean it gives me a front view, a right view, a top view, and an isometric view, and then automatically centers the shape in the window. So I can do stuff like this. I can scale it up and not worry about, well, unless the scale's too big, I don't have to worry about things moving out of alignment and stuff like that, which is really quite nice. I'm pretty happy with that. Long-winded answer, but in short, things are going well. How are things going with you? Have I already tried doing some refactoring or cleaning up of my code? I'll be honest, nothing substantial yet. Unless you count this refactoring. I can in org mode you can collapse things. By the way, this isn't refactoring, but so I can let's say I wanted this work in progress functions to be defined after the centering function. You can pop them up and like shuffle things around that way. So it's not true refactoring, it's just reordering. But the refactoring is definitely important, but it's probably not something to show on stream. At least I don't know a way to make it entertaining enough to do on stream yet. So that's been, maybe I've just been procrastinating, to be honest. Think you should face Clojure's unwieldy dynamic nature early? Yeah, I believe if it wasn't you, it might have been Bizmonger who mentioned Clojure Spec, which is a let's see here. Spec is a cool library to describe describe the structure of data and functions. It can be used to validate data, conform data, explain invalid data, make examples, and use generative testing. So it's a powerful library that can be used, like you say, up front to kind of rein in and constrain the dynamic nature of things. So it's been on my mind and on my list of things to do to off-stream read up on how to use Spec effectively, and then start putting it into my workflow. Because what would be really cool is to make to write kind of like this. If you have, generally speaking, you write Clojure, right? You write function I'm making test or spec or whatever, and then you do things, and then it on save or something like that, it automatically runs all your tests, and then function I'm making, the real thing right here. So then anytime you save the function, it runs the test and automatically shows you what works and doesn't work. That kind of workflow would be really cool, and I think you're probably right that it's smart to do it sooner rather than later. So you take my word for it. I've got notes about Spec up in these other days, and I just haven't got around to it yet. But it's on my mind. Dynamic languages aren't exactly amenable to refactoring, and keeping code clean and refactorable requires inhuman amounts of discipline. Yeah, I've heard this about dynamic languages before, and I think there's probably some good truth to it. I have no strong opinions either way, mostly because I haven't built for myself this massive library with which to experience firsthand those kinds of issues. I don't know if that makes any sense. But Spec is probably, for my kind of thinking about what I'm doing, probably a pretty good idea. Figure out a smooth way to have tests running in your workflow or something. Yeah, so you're not wrong, and I have no excuse, I just haven't done it yet. It's as simple as that. Yeah, I'm not gonna switch languages, at least not for what I'm doing right now. To be clear, I'm not opposed to using other languages. It's just Clojure is what I'm using right now, and I have no real reason at the moment to switch over to anything else. Because honestly, I do really enjoy Clojure. I do think probably as I go, I'll want to expand my language knowledge, and there's probably a great project that I haven't thought of that would be really cool to use a static language for. But for right now, I'm not going to switch in the middle of doing this, so I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. It's all fun and games when prototyping. Yeah, I guess you're right about that. And that's exactly where I'm at. Just prototyping, so. Oops. Come on. Yeesh. There we go. Okay, so let me see if I can get my brain wrapped around something else to do today. What in Permyakov, I'm not sure if you mentioned it before, but what kind of languages do you typically like to use? Just out of curiosity. I've had other people mention that they use F#, which I think that is statically typed. Strongly typed, it says here. Yeah. Anyway. When you have a large, unmanageable body of dynamic code, it's another story. Well, so one thing that, I'm not saying you specifically, I mean, when I've looked at popular Clojure libraries that are written and used regularly, more often than not, they're actually fairly small libraries. So maybe I don't know what comes first, right? Dynamic languages encourage small libraries, or who knows what's happening there. But in my experience of reading through the code of popular Clojure libraries, they don't tend to be these massive bits of code. Small libraries, that should make you think. Well, it does make me think, but I'm not sure that it's a bad thing necessarily, you know? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it could be, yeah. So what programming languages do you use most of the time? I'm not sure if you've mentioned that before. I'm just curious. Let's see, what do I want to do next? Oops. Oop. There we go. You're having second thoughts about my use of Clojure. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you're allowed to. That's totally fine. I'm really enjoying it, and I don't have currently a reason to need to switch. And by the way, it's totally cool if you're not going to be using Clojure. Like, that's totally fine. But if I am choosing to use the language, then I'm going to use the language, right? Obviously. The other thing, which maybe I haven't mentioned before, the goals of the library I'm working on and the stream that I'm doing it's like, this is pretty open-ended for me, eh? Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, there's a lot of stuff I'm hoping to learn, and a lot of stuff I'm trying to share as I go. So it's not like I'm dogmatic about anything, but it is also the case that at the moment I'm gonna stick with Clojure. Does that make any sense? I hope so. I'm not trying to be hostile or anything, right? But I've got a bit of work going on in Clojure and a lot to learn yet from the language at the very least. You're going to try Clojure, at least to give your skill and discipline a test, yeah? Sounds reasonable. I mean, if it's intriguing to you, right? Like, I do know a lot of people don't like Lisp languages in general, and Clojure in particular, it can be received with people have mixed feelings about it sometimes. But if you're willing to give it a try, I have nothing but good things to say about it. It's a lot of fun to use, and I'm enjoying it. Okay, I'm thinking through what I want to do next with what I'm working on here. Because I don't currently have an idea. Last time I tried to write a sizable component in JavaScript, you chickened out and switched to statically typed variety of JS. I think probably you mean TypeScript, right? I think that's what you're referring to, I would assume, unless there are other statically typed JavaScript things. No? Flow? I'm sorry, I haven't heard of that one. I have not heard of that one. Let me think about what I should do next here. There are a number of statically typed derivatives of JavaScript. Yeah, I guess there might be a few, eh? I know TypeScript. I think CoffeeScript was also one, though I'm not sure if CoffeeScript was statically typed. I just remember hearing about it before. Let me see now for a moment. Oh, I have an idea what I can try next. Let me see now if let me see one thing I have to do later on, the draw functions. CoffeeScript is dynamic. Or there's type checking. Oh, I see. Yeah. I also think CoffeeScript isn't really used anymore anyway. At least I haven't heard of it in a few years probably. the draw functions are hard-coded into functions like center view. This makes it impossible for the user to choose render modes. Pass it in as a function instead. Pass draw function in as an argument instead. Let's see. Argument instead. I'm just writing notes for my future self here. So what I'm talking about, it's CoffeeScript is a little vilified these days. You don't know why. Don't know why it's vilified. Oh, okay. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. It seems like maybe it was totally fine and it just, for whatever reason, fell out of popularity. I mean, programming languages and extensions and libraries and all of that, they kind of come and go based on the, I mean, who knows what. It's not always technical merit. Sometimes it's just popularity or ease of use or who knows what. But people will be people, right? It's hard to predict what succeeds. And I think CoffeeScript just happened to be one of those things that dropped off. But I don't know, of course. I'm just hypothesizing. This note here is just, in this prototype thing I've got going on here, for example, this center view function calls draw faces inside the function directly, which prevents me from choosing to draw all these things as edges. So if I change this here, save it, and re-render the document, they'll all show with edges. So I'm just making a note for myself to rework that so that I can choose the render, so I can choose to render it without rewriting the function, because that is not the smart way to do it, obviously. So that's what that note's about. But the thing I was gonna try was the recursive version of this. Draw edges recursive. Which actually has, let's see here, draw edges recursive just takes row, and draw edges row. Let's try that. Probably gonna break. It's okay though. Let me see if that'll work. Working on any new cool projects in Permukov, just out of curiosity? Did it work? I think that worked. I wasn't paying attention. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So that's working just fine, which is a good sign, obviously. Not currently, no, just relaxing, just chilling, or just working, just doing whatever. So I actually want to see what happens if I do Oh wait, I'm editing in the wrong spot. I don't need to do that here. Let me see if this will work the way I expect. List, letter A. Oops. Move 2, 0, 2, 0, 0, A. Save that and see if it works. Yeah, trying to get back into the work routine. Recently fallen off of. Yeah, have you like have there been disruptions to your regular work from due to global concerns or just personal stuff going on that's causing changes? By the way, don't feel obligated to answer if you would prefer not to. I'm just curious, right? No worries either way. Key must be integer. Got addicted to Twitch and not working. Oh man, I know the feeling. That can be and I'm not gonna lecture you, of course, but yeah, that's a tough spot to be in, almost, where like part of you kind of knows that, oh man, it's been X bit of time, maybe I should do something different, or maybe I should do blank instead, but inertia or who knows what is kind of almost preventing that. Yeah, I'm not lecturing you, I know, but I've experienced stuff like that. Maybe that's not exactly what's going on for you, but sorry to hear that things aren't going necessarily the way you had hoped in terms of work. But I think you'll find a way to get through it, you know? I did something wrong. There we go. There's that. The more you tell yourself that you should work, the more you move away from it. By you, I mean me. Yeah. Oh man. I have found myself to be like the biggest source of pressure and shame, almost, with like, I wanted to get this much work done in a day, and I thought, okay, that's the ideal amount, but if you get this much or this much or this much, or even if you get exactly what you wanted done, it can feel like, oh man, I just didn't perform the way I wanted. So then it's almost like easier to not do it at all, right? If there's no way you're gonna succeed, theoretically, it's just easier not to play the game. But yeah, it's a tough spot. I'm not equipped to give like real advice or anything like that, right? So I'm afraid to give anything. I hope you can work that out, you know? If it's something you want to change, I think you can change it. But you got to know yourself enough to do it, right? I think you can. I think everyone can do that one way or another. What have I done? Yeah, okay, so the move function's working the way I want it to. Oops. There we go. Something like that. Yeah. Let's see here. Do you do any like running or going to the gym or anything like that? Let's see. Cad View. Oh, right. You'd have to, let me see if this works. You don't? Twitch? Yeah. So I just again, I was just curious. Like I managed to go from time to time, and it just crossed my mind because it's one spot where, like, for whatever reason, I can just remove all the thoughts about other stuff. I find it really nice, but of course, you know, if it's not something you do, then that's not obviously available to you. But when you're on Twitch, like, do you watch mostly programming stuff, or do you watch like gameplay and stuff? And again, I think I said this, but of course you're not obligated to actually answer, right? Like, if you don't want to, totally fine. But you're here watching a programming stream, so I kind of wonder, going to the gym makes you dumb? What do you mean by that? I think going to the gym is great. I'm a little biased, but I like it. What am I trying to do? Of course, this isn't doing anything. I always find that on days where I go to the gym, I feel like I can think clearer myself anyway. Map, orient, ISO, row. Okay, so I'm not gonna keep going down this rabbit hole for right now. Orient, ISO, front, etc. don't work recursively. So Cad View function cannot work on a list of items to draw. I think that's correct, right? If I were to orient ISO of a list of X triangle things, that shouldn't work, right? But if I map that, oops, then I get a list of those things, right? It's a list. Yeah, so it's got the first entry and then the second entry there. Yeah, and then I could do draw, clear that for a minute. Here, if I do draw edges recursive on that, then it does work. Yeah, okay, so that is the problem. I was trying to run, just as a test, this Cad View thing right now. I can only pass it in a single object. I can't pass it in a list of objects, just because I made this orient function and this one and this one and this one, they apply a rotation transform on a singular object, not on a list of objects. So that's why that's breaking. I can rewrite that, but I'm not going to do that today because I don't need to at the moment. I'll do that off stream probably. Oops, come on, there we go. So I'm curious, what do you mean if you're interested in chatting about it? What about going to the gym makes you dumb? That's surprising to me. So let me go back to here. Let's do a Cad View. Call it Cad View instead because that's what that is. That looks right. Save that. And then go up here and just make this snippet work again. Cad View of the test, letter A. Like that. Save it, should be okay. Become too relaxed and content. Oh man, I don't know. I find I kind of find when I'm relaxed and content that things you can kind of work easier, you know? Just let it go a little bit, man, you know? Go with the flow. But I actually kind of understand what you mean by that. It almost feels like having that bit of stress on you gives you that sharp edge, right? Okay, so I've not been doing much. I've just been kind of messing around with these numbers, not changing anything, which is my bad because it's not exactly exciting to watch. So front, right, top, front, right, top, ISO view labels to Cad View. Maybe I want that later. When I'm relaxed and content, I remember that I don't like to work and you don't like programming as much as you thought. Oh man, is it something? Do you know what about programming that you don't like? Is it maybe is it like boilerplate kind of programming? Because I find, so I'm not like a programmer by training, right? So I can't speak about things in that realm so much. But I find I used to do SolidWorks, which is a 3D modeling program. I used to do that all the time, and I found there were certain kinds of things where if it was repetitive and simple but it took a long time, I didn't like doing that. But if it were a complicated project where I had to think about it uniquely, I found that was really engaging. So I'm not sure if that's even comparable, but it seems like maybe there's a parallel there. Let's see. Hate what is called programming today. I've got to expand on that. I don't know exactly what you mean. Okay. I have about 20 minutes or so before I'm going to get going, and I have to think of a thing that is useful to do right now on stream. What would be cool? Oh, I have an idea. Yeah, what I think I'll do next is make a let's see here. If I go draw shapes, so I have this polygon thing. And polygon D is a dashed line polygon, so that's fine for now. But I can start working on even-sided polygon. Is that the right way to describe it? Programming today is just assembling something barely working from a multitude of crappy parts. Yeah, like a ton of like just find the latest library, get it to work, call it good, be done, move on, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's so tough to I find a similar thing happens in office environments. If you're not like a place that does programming as part of the work, so like engineering places that I've worked at, for example, people end up making spreadsheets, like Excel spreadsheets and macros and stuff to do a lot of things. And a similar sort of environment can arise from that, where you've got just a lot of spreadsheets that theoretically do some pretty powerful things, but they're all kind of duct taped together, and it can be very confusing, and sometimes it's frustrating. And well, this spreadsheet doesn't work on Fridays when the server's doing an update, and like it can get messy. But the reason I think that happens is because people kind of want to have a thing that works, and people will grab at a thing that, oh wait, I know that if you do this in Excel you can get that out of it, so it's at hand, right? So I don't know that it's necessarily motivated by anything bad. People love to make things that work, but then making it work now and making it work in the future is their different goals, which does in fact go back to what you were saying about when I was talking about Spec a little bit. So okay, reasonable thoughts. And I'm yammering on about stuff as if I know what I'm talking about. These are all just my opinions, right? There's probably more that I don't know than that I do know, so we all just got to kind of figure out what works for us and go from there, I think. What I want to see is if I can make a circle given just a radius, right? So the most immediate thing that I can think of is to literally just, let's make a crappy version of it where it calls polygon with a list of points that happen to be just 4 points. So this is going to look like a diamond. It's not going to look like a proper circle, but yeah, it'll be fine for now. So it'll be radius 0, 0 radius, negative radius 0, 0 negative radius, and then it goes back to the start. So that's a circle. And if I draw that, let me actually go up here. Cylinder is going to just be rotate an extrusion of circle radius 0.5, and you're going to extrude it 1, and this is going to look ridiculous. Is it even going to work? I shall find out. Cylinder. Just making it work creates negative externality, which isn't talked about much. And when it escapes through open source and becomes someone's naive dependency, man. Yeah, what was it was it left pad? There was a thing on, I think it was npm, the node package manager a while ago, where someone took that off or changed it or something, and it kind of just messed with a bunch of stuff. Can't resolve symbol circle. Well, that would be because I didn't save this yet. That was one example, yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think the answer, or like the solutions to those kinds of problems, which are very real problems, you know, just getting it working and externalities. You're totally right about those, but it's not like it's probably not a binary thing, right? It's like some balance of just make it work and then just make it robust enough for some definition of enough. And I think that's why it's so hard and so frustrating, right? Because people will have disagreements with what levels of getting it working versus getting it correct is the safest. At least whenever I have an argument like that in the offices about technology and how much time to do this or how careful we should be, it's not that people don't think we should be careful, it's just that people think very differently about what good enough actually is, you know. It's really hard sometimes. There we go. And I don't know the answers, unfortunately. What did I do? I typoed? Let me see here. I've got, I'm looking in the wrong spots here. I'm getting distracted today. Sorry about that. I'm a little off today. Why is this not working? Oh, negative. Oh, I see. I have to just can't do it like that. Got to do that. Oh, and Permukov, I don't have links enabled in the chat. Sorry about that. If it's on YouTube, if you could just say what the title of the talk is, and people or myself can search it. Cylinder. Try that. Jonathan Blow, preventing the collapse of civilization. Good old Jonathan Blow. He's a game dev, right? Braid, I think, was the big popular one that he had. He even does programming streams, probably with way more viewers than mine and way more concise and clear descriptions of what he's doing. There's time to learn though. Key must be integer. Well, okay, let's go into the draw one here. Go like this. circle 1 polygon. Okay. I have too many windows and not enough screen real estate. Points, yeah. Yeah, with a couple 100 times more viewers. Yeah, that'll be fine. Since I brought it up, yeah. Hey, you know, that's all right. So I've been mentioning it in other streams. I'm very clearly totally new to this, right? I really like doing it, and I want to keep doing it, and I intend to. But obviously, I want it to grow over time too. I have no specific targets in mind in terms of viewers and all that stuff, because I'm not trying to pressure myself into forcing growth and all that. But you know, there's obviously a big difference, but this is a lot of fun for me, and I really do hope I can keep the ball rolling on it. There's a lot of stuff I have in mind to improve. First of all, with how I approach my workflow on the screen itself and what I'm actually writing in terms of efficient and effective code. But as for the stream itself too, I really do hope to improve my ability to be doing the stream, chatting with people, you know, explaining what I'm doing in an effective way. All of that stuff is part of the long-term goals that I have for learning as I'm going. I'm rambling now, but I'm excited about that kind of stuff. It seems really cool. And that there are people with more views is totally normal and completely fine, right? Like that's obviously going to be the way it goes for a while. Oh, I gotta go back to okay, so if I do draw a circle there, if I extrude that, oh, of course that's not, I'm mixing up my 2D and 3D contexts here, and that's why that's not going to work. I need to use the make 2D and 3D functions more explicit / handle more explicit. Example, polygon 2D, polygon 3D, or something like that. We shall see. Have you watched any of Rich Hickey's talks? I've watched quite a few of them. He's I think he's a really clear thinker and a great communicator about his ideas, and I find that really enjoyable to watch. I also think he happens to be quite an intelligent person who thinks very deeply about the problems that he's trying to solve, and that's really inspiring. I think his talks are great. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear. I've heard like talks like his Simple Made Easy. People reference that one all the time. Yeah, I think he's great. And his talks are good too. Your thoughts exactly? Yeah. Yeah, he's good. It's inspiring stuff. What am I even doing today, man? I'm all over the place. Okay. Right, so this is the function I actually want to be using. So I don't want to, I'm going to back up a little ways here and undo this circle definition here in the shapes thing, because that's not what I need. It's in the wrong spot. and I'm gonna rework that after the fact. So what I have here instead, right, is a polygon 2D, and I'm gonna just define a crappy circle here, crappy circle, radius, polygon 2D, which takes a list of points. Oops. Radius 0, 0 radius, negative radius, 0, 0 negative radius. There we go. We've got a crappy circle. And now that should work when I go up here. And use crappy circle like that. All right. I have to go to the washroom. I'll be right back. Hey, look, there's a cylinder that that's just a diamond shape, but that's a starting point. I'll be right back though. Alright, I'm back at it for just a little bit, not much longer today. I'll have a more full roster for tomorrow's work. Today's just, I have a meeting later, so it's a bit of an off day for me. Like, I didn't have time to plan everything out. But hey, some days are going to be like that, so I'm okay with it. So, if I want to there's a way to parameterize shapes, right? And then from 0 to t as a function. Let me see. I have let's see if there's anything still useful in this. Polyline. Oh, those are, pardon me. Brep curves, align, circle. Let's see. Oh, I'll have to move this over with, yeah, okay. So this is a different, this was a different code base that I have with some parameterized things instead of just drawing SVG files directly. And the general idea is this is a parametric definition of a circle. So if I would run this function, I'm not going to do it in this namespace because I need to import all these utilities, which I don't want to, I'm not doing that today. The idea is you give it ABC. In this case, ABC are 3 points in 3D space, and then you do all this math to calculate the center point of the circle that you could draw through those 3 points, get that center point, and then you can use all of that to return a function which is a mapping from 0 to 1. So you map the 0 to 1 and then the shape of the circle. So you would give this function the number 0.3, and it will return to you a 3D point in space, because the whole curve that is the circle is parameterized from a single variable t, and then you can take that. So you could calculate any single point on that whole curve by just asking for any point between 0 and 1 on it. So the reason I was bringing that up is just I could employ a similar idea to this here. I could just parameterize the circle by t, and then just get the list of points by doing, range 0, 1 with a step of 0.1 if I want 10 points, or 0.2 if I only want 5. But I'm wondering if I care that much right now about that. So the forge.org library could be very useful to use in extensions to stylo.org. Example, parametric curves in brep. Okay, that's fine there. But now let's just add let's just add in more points here, which they're gonna be oh shoot, what's the math for that? Oh boy. This math should be easy, but it's not coming to my brain right now. A squared b squared equals r squared, right? So if I want a and b at their equal, then you just do a squared plus b squared equals the radius squared. So the radius is just the square root of a squared plus b squared. Or 2a squared equals r squared. Square root 2a squared root 2 by 2. Man, I'm doing a silly today. There we go. Let's just math square root of divided by RR2 A. So then you got AA, 0R, negative A, like that. Negative R, 0, negative A, negative A. Negative A, and 0, negative R. And the last point is going to be A, negative A. So that increases the resolution, if you could call it that, of the cylinder here. Let's make the radius of that just a little bigger for the fun of it. There we go. So that is a cylinder-ish. Cylindish. So the better way to do that would be there's an equation that I don't remember that does defin n-gon, where you take the radius and the sides, radius and this number of sides, and then you can do some calculation for all of the points that will make a an n-sided polygon where all the side lengths are equal. So hexagon from side length, something like that, for example, right? So here's a calculator example, right? You can do Omni calculator. This seems like a cool site. Right, so there's two radii. You could have the smaller one that goes to the midpoint of one of the faces, or edges, sorry, or the longer radius that goes to the corner. And right, so this is maybe not length of sides in a regular hexagon. Perimeter, S is the length of any one of its sides. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. For another day, maybe. I wonder, actually, get points for polygon with even side lengths. Is that a thing? No. Here, help. Some algebra thing. I know I've done this before and I just forget it, so actually, here's an idea. I'm gonna add that to my notes to make a post out of, because that might be pretty cool on its own. Okay, so polygons. What do you call that? Like a polygon of equal side length. Equal side length. Polygons of equal side length, whatever. A regular polygon. Hey, there you go. Regular polygons. Much more succinct. Thanks. See, the thing is, I know I've done this before, but I just forget the implementation of it. So if I write it in my actual notes and maybe turn it into a blog post, then the theory goes I will be able to remember it better and also have a spot to reference it in the future. A hand from a non-native speaker. Thanks, I appreciate it. Sometimes words are hard, you know? Sometimes words are hard. Polygons of equal side length. Let me just make a quick rough note here. Regular polygons can be useful to draw. A concise way to describe them would involve specifying the radius circumscribed or the other one, specifying the radius, the number of the radius, and the number of sides. Equally concise is would be specifying number of sides and side length. Creating a function that returns the points of a regular polygon is a useful exercise. And then here can put crappy circle as a starting point there, right? And then turn this into like an actual blog post kind of thing. there. The crappiest circle is this same thing even without the A calculated in there. But that's obviously pretty useless. So then, okay. I'm just yammering to myself. I'm just putting this in because I have to get going in about 3 minutes. So this was the last thing that popped into my head to do before I have to do other stuff for the day, which is gonna be good enough there. So, oops, split. To draw a circle, it may be useful to discretize the curve into straight segments. The easiest place to start is a very poor representation of a circle using only 4 points. We can improve this by calculating the points where the radius is 45 degrees from the axes, blah blah blah, but we can generally be more efficient, more effective. And here is where you do define regular polygon, right? And then take some arguments and it does something, and there you go. So there we go. I've got a stub that I can use as an article. I've done the work I needed to do for the Cad View, which is turning out okay. There's a lot of notes I have here for myself to improve on, but that'll be totally fine. I'm not worried about that. I also have, separately from that, to improve workflow, consider making an org file parser that works, that can render using my library, my stylo lib. So that would be up here. In the builder, I've got the parser. I've got a markdown parser here using a library called instaparse. And I could create a similar parser here that, yeah, if I do it like this, actually, wait, what am I doing? I'll just do it this way. Split that. Oops. Def org parser, and then I've got the same general shape to it, and it'll probably have all the same stuff in it, but I have to, obviously I have to make the language, or make the grammar correct to the syntax of an org file, but this is a starting point. Which I can work on probably tonight, actually, and maybe I could get that working tomorrow, but that'll be a thing I do later. All right, I have to get going. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for chatting. I really do appreciate that. I'll be back again tomorrow at 12:30. For the month of June, I'm doing this every day. Since I'm enjoying it so much, my intent is to use that time to kind of learn a little bit more about a sustainable schedule and an approach that is entertaining and something that I can keep doing longer. But for this month, 12:30 every day is when I'll be streaming, so feel free to tune in again tomorrow. Feel free to chat or just listen. All of that's cool. I really appreciate the views and the time. Thanks so much, and I hope things go well for you. If you're watching this now, I hope you're doing okay. If you're watching this in the future, thank you, and I hope you're having a good time wherever you're at. But I'm going to get going. Have a good one.